need for today's presentation, which I didn't bring with me, is an Australian accent, because it's awesome. People want to listen to people with Australian accents. My name is Dave Colby. As Craig said, I work at this place called Mac Tennis Academy. It is an RTC up in New England. And today I'm here to talk about competition. I'm going to talk about how to get kids competing, how to build a culture in your own home club, wherever it is that you teach, your park, your rec program, whatever it is that you're doing. Trying to lay some building blocks where you can create an atmosphere where kids are competing and playing the game of tennis. I mean, those numbers that Craig showed for tournaments is very weak. It's very weak. So there's a big disconnect, and I'm happy to be here today, so thanks for inviting me. So I started at this club that had a very big program in 2001. We had about 300 kids in the program, and it was an exclusive yellow ball program, of course. We were very big into dead ball feeding. We had a ton of kids and a ton of coaches with kids in lines, and we were probably the best feeders in the Northeast. And a lot of the kids that we had in our program actually looked like they could hit a ball. They looked like they were being coached, but they could not play the game. All the kids in our 10-under program, of course, played 0 games of tennis. They were all just taking lessons. So there was a real disconnect from the very beginning about how we coached the kids and how we delayed some sort of competitive piece for a long time. And a lot of that was a challenge based upon the dimensions, based upon the speed of the ball and all the things that we all know. So we had a very traditional program with a ton of kids that what happened was we had a lot of kids coming in, and we had a lot of kids quit. We weren't giving them any sort of attachment to the game. And we weren't growing the environment and the atmosphere that was fun and that was tied into the game of tennis. It was just an activity. So we had a lot of kids coming in for a short period of time trying activity, and then they would basically bail. So when the red, orange, and green, when we really made a switch in about 2006, of course, right off the bat, for those 300 kids, we lost about 100 kids. Parents had no idea what we were doing. Nobody else was doing it in that area. They were very concerned. We were moving kids back. We made a lot of bad choices. We're a lot further down the road now, so we can kind of see, well, that was a bold move on our part back then, but thank God we did it. Thank God we did it. What we are able to do now, based on the programming formats, you saw a lot of good people over there that have been demonstrating those things, is that above and beyond getting kids playing in the right size spaces, that we're able to get them to compete first in-house from the very beginning. So we have successfully moved from a program that involved 0 game to really getting the kids really focused on playing the game of tennis. And playing the real game of tennis just scaled down. So I'm here today just to tell you show you a couple of things that we have been doing to try to really build that culture around the game of tennis. One of the things that we do is we focus on red. We have a lot of kids in red. And what we do is we flight these kids 3 times a year in little mini cycles. Okay? They're 6-week cycles. And the kids that we have on what's called our Players Path, which is basically they come in for 2 program hours a week. They get automatically flighted on this theme. So this would be their 3rd time a week. They come over for 6 matches. We try to get some inter-club things happening, but for the most part, it's all in-house. So they're basically playing against each other. What are the goals for Red? We're trying to get these kids to play unsupervised tiebreakers in a team format. They're playing the game of tennis. They're calling out the score. They know all the rules. They're starting to develop tactics. They're starting to think about the player on that side of the court, not just on themselves. But above and I think really what the big takeaway today is, because all of us here in this room already know that basic information. But the point is this: you're starting to build a team environment, and you're starting to get these kids spending time with each other, playing the game in the sport of tennis, and that is growing a culture. That is growing a culture that if we know that if we get them in red, we know that if we do a good job in red, and if we get them competing, and again, they're not walking away with massive trophies, but they're participating all team style events, they're coming for those hours, for those 6 hours and a half, they're going to make a friend or two. We know that if we do a good job with them in red, we're going to have such a higher likelihood we're going to get them in orange. I mean, in fact, the kids that I have in this that are participating in red, I guarantee I'm going to have them in orange. The kids that I don't see, the kids that I still I don't really get them to that point where I have them plugged in enough in red, it's hit or miss. We end up losing a lot of those kids. So once the kids get into the orange level in this program, again, everything that we do is based on building teams, building that culture around the comp. Not so much. We don't have a rankings board. We don't have a standings board. But what we do is we incentivize them based on participation. You know, that's really the big thing. We're putting a big emphasis on participation. We want you to come and be part of this. This is fun. Tennis is one of the greatest games in the world, and it's one of the few games that you can make lifelong friendships and relationships, and you can play your whole life. So that's the positive. We try to create the culture. We've created this little passport program, which we make it color specific based on the ball, of course. So the kids, they start in red, they're in a team comp, they have that sort of friendship base, we're growing the base. When we get them into orange, they show up the first day of the program, we snap a picture, and we make a tiny little passport for them. So this is what they take with them. They put it in their bag, and what the passport has, I'll show you the second page. What the passport has is it has all of the competition for the year. And I think the big thing for us was how we made this successful is we just got more organized. We said, you know what? We're going to have this group. We're going to pre-plan everything we're going to do for the entire year. And we put it in a simple form. We publish it. The kids have it. They have their name on it. So we have a couple of things that we actually do. On the right-hand side, on the inside, you can see we have all of our events. And I'll talk about them. So we have about every 6 weeks or so, we have a round-robin style event. It's about a 3.5-hour event, and it's seasonal based. So we have a Halloween type of tournament, it's a team-style tournament, we have a turkey tournament, we have World Team Tennis style tournament, we have a big live music event that we do in the summertime. And we're the home of the Boston Lobsters, so we do a couple of events related to putting kids in a World Team Tennis format. And basically the kids, they earn little stickers. So when they show up, they show up for their tournament. And we basically generate all this stuff through email. We have a distribution list for all our in-house kids. If the kids are playing 2 times a week, they're on the player's path, they're automatically, there's no extra charge. They basically get these built-in tournaments. When they fill in a certain number of boxes here, in my club, they actually earn a trophy. And that's based on 0 results. That's based on participation in those events. And I think the more we can incentivize the kids to participate, the more win we're going to get. Over here on the left-hand side, so these are sort of the culminating events. These every 6 weeks, what we call the Junior Big Slam tournaments. On the left-hand side, we have our in-house match play. That's just that little grid over there. And the way that we have tried to motivate kids to come to those practices, and for Orange, it's a standing time, hour and a half, the kids come, we have a coach, they're playing a lot of different kids, singles, doubles, it doesn't matter, the kids are playing practice matches, they get a little check. So the coach who is organizing that match play signs off on it. When they fill in a row, they earn a private lesson. They earn a free half-hour private lesson. So we have all the coaches on board. We have all the coaches bought in. For the green level, the kids get 2 hours of match play. So in a session, we have 12 weeks. So they basically get 24 hours of match play. And at first, I'll be honest, the coaches said, what, I have to give this kid a half-hour private lesson for free? You're not going to pay me? And I said, this kid is one of your students. Not only did he come to the group, he came for 24 hours of match play. I said, what are you doing here? Are you a teacher? Because I consider myself to be a teacher. I don't have a ruler, but I'm a teacher. So am I willing to give a kid a half-hour private? Is anybody here willing to give a half-hour private lesson to someone who did 24 hours of match play? If your hands are no, there's a big silence in red back there. You should hit it. Because of course, we've got to give a little bit. And how are we going to get the kids into the game of tennis? We've got to get them playing the game of tennis. We've got to get them playing the game. So this is how we do it. Again, is this how you should do it in your club? I don't think so. But I think could you come up with something that is simple, that is organized, that is pre-planned, that is going to incentivize kids? And you know what the cool thing about this is? The kids are anticipating the next event. And that's really the big thing. Before, we ran a lot of events that were just sort of one-offs, that I'd say, oh, I want to do something in 2 weeks, and I'd put a flyer together, I'd throw it, and I'd get kids. But the point is, that's the wrong mindset. If you can get organized enough where you pre-plan the whole year, the kids are going to be asking the kids, you're going to be there? Of course you're going to be there. We're both on this player's path. We're in. We're already in the tournament. We're already rostered on the tournament. So we do Halloween tournaments. Just to give you an idea of just basic themes around season, you know? This snowball event is fun. We do it red, orange, and green. We have the parents come out and play with their kids. Again, they're getting a participation point for that. The World Team Tennis thing we've done is cool because we dovetail it with a match. This year we did it and we had the kids go to the John Isner match, which was on property. So I mean, we have a lot of good things going for us, obviously. This one is a cool one that Craig may have come down, or I know some people have come down and checked it out because it's pretty cool. We have a tournament in all the formats, and then we have a live band. So, you know, again, I think a lot of the times that we spend off the court and doing fun things with the kids that are pre-planned is gonna build the culture around this is a sport, but I have a lot of friends and I have a lot of relationships. And I think the more we can do to incentivize the kids to check the box to get this there for participation, the more we're gonna grow the game of tennis and our own clubs, and obviously the more revenue your club is going to make. Okay? Obviously for us, all those one-off events were about half of the amount of revenue that we make with these these sort of pre-planned events. Right? Because we're building in value. We're building in a lot of value. We have kids, if they come 2 times a week, because basically we asked ourselves a question, we said, oh great, we have X amount of kids in the program. How many of these kids are playing twice a week? And I don't care how great a coach you are, how good are the kids going to get 12 hours? It's just not enough time. So we said, how are we going to get kids better? And how are we going to get kids more attached to the game? We've got to get them playing more. So we just changed the whole physics by changing the program and by really incentivizing with heavy discounts to get kids to play twice a week. And then also, we said we're going to give the kids to play twice a week. We're going to flight them on those teams. We're going to give them the comp. And then for the match plays, we get a little per diem cost that the kids have for the match play when they show up. So I'm happy to, am I good on time?
Yeah, great.
I think that I covered all the bullets that I wanted to have. I think, for me, I think the biggest takeaway is if you can come up with something visual, with something that maybe the kids keep themselves, rather than always creating materials that are going directly to the parents and getting thrown away, I think that's going to really help you. Because if the kid is going up to the parent saying, did you sign me up for the turkey tournament? Because I know it's coming up next Saturday. Okay, that's going to be different. And I think too, parents are very busy, you know? So I think if you can give them something like this in September 1, and they can put it in the iPhone for the next 10 months, that's also really going to help. It's really going to help. So, absolutely. And I have 2 of them. I got one more too if you guys want to pass it on. Yes, it is. Yeah. So I'm going to hand it over to my friend, Mark Faber. There you go. Thank you.
questions at the end. We'll let the two of them get through because I know you're going to have a lot of questions, and we'll save that for later. All right, thanks, guys.
Well, first of all, Craig, thanks for having us here. Ann Davis, if she's here, it's been great working with Dave. One thing, just like to point out, seeing the word Boston a lot, being a New York Yankee fan in New York, and constantly having to hear Boston, kind of sets it up nicely. But as Craig said, I'm the director of tennis at a facility in Toledo, Ohio. I've developed anybody from starting at beginners all the way up to playing through pro tennis, and I've been a high school coach for over 20 years. So what my different approach is going to be here is, Dave just talked about 10 and unders, and I'm strictly going to talk about playing opportunities for high school kids. Now, one thing I noticed being a high school coach for over 20 years is there's a lot of kids playing high school tennis. I think our area mirrors what the country's statistics are. I'm looking, and just by a show of hands, how many people here are high school coaches or involved with high school programming? All right, how many programs of those people have more than 10 kids playing on your team? All right, how many have more than 20? 30? Okay. Our area alone, I could probably come up with 5 or 6 teams that have 30 to 50 players on them. So that's a great, how many, probably, 350,000 kids play high school tennis. Now, I look at our draw sizes in our USTA tournaments, 16s and 18s especially. 8 to 12 kids in a tournament, if we're lucky. Now remember, I told you we could come up with 5 or 6, and that's 5 or 6 boys teams, 5 or 6 girls teams. We're split in Ohio. And we only have 8 to 12 kids playing. So as I took a step back, and Craig said, I was really into the high-end stuff. I had kids going to nationals, kids did really well in college. But I said, well, we're missing the boat here. We're really missing the boat. And the first thing I looked at was our in-house setup. And I just kind of want to talk about what we did in-house first to try to get our kids playing tournaments, also increase some revenue because of what we did. And here are just the basics, what our in-house program was. We wanted to get kids playing more, and it was based off of these 4 items. We wanted them to travel less. We wanted to lower the cost. We wanted the pros to watch, our pros that are teaching these kids. We didn't want them to be able to watch them compete. And then we wanted to also have tournaments that served as motivation. And if you think about the national schedule and then and the tournament structure down into the sections, a lot of those were the same things that we had talked about. So off of those 4 key points, what we did is every other month we host a sanctioned event, say in January, and then a non-sanctioned event in February. And the rationale behind that is when you're running a sanctioned event right now, you're kind of locked into some rules. But when you run a non-sanctioned event, do whatever you want. Make it 1 hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes. Make it 6 hours. Who knows? Who cares? You're just getting the kids to play more. We host a earned advancement tournament every month. Now what we'll do is we'll alternate. So January we might do red-orange, February green. We host local events. We tried to set it up where we hosted a local event every month. Now, in the north, you got permanent court time in the winter and so forth. But what happened is we didn't want our kids to have an excuse why not to play. We're hosting the tournament, and we think it's a great idea that you play. And then what we did on a section and national level, we put in bids to host, and we've been fortunate enough to get several high-level Midwest events and some national events, which in turn serve as motivation for these kids that are playing the local events. So we kind of create this system. The other thing this does, we noticed helped us, is our pros started coaching in our groups and in privates more practically. They're seeing what the kids are struggling on. So then when they took it back to the groups and we're talking about what to work on, that's what we did. We did say, hey, remember this day, remember this match. And it was done in some of the things, one of my pros did a great job in one of the non-sanctioned events. they knew as a whole what this group struggled with, and they ran the whole non-sanctioned event where they had to work on this. So, for example, serve and volley. Well, we're going to do serve and volley day. Next 2 hours every night you play, you have to serve and volley. So it gives a lot of flexibility and freedom. Now, it's easy for us to deal with what's right in front of us. And you see the kids every day. Sure, they're not playing. So what do? Well, how can we get those kids playing? But, once again, I know the 40 kids are on my high school team, they don't all play at my club. So they're not right in front of me every day. So you've got to think outside the box on how to get these kids playing more. But I should just take the word more out. How can I get these kids to play? I mean, what was the statistic? 99,000 kids play one tournament, and that's 12s through 18s. 350,000 kids play high school tennis. How many of you, by show of hands, think there's a disconnect there? One tournament, 99,000 kids. 350,000 kids play high school tennis. So the 3 programs I'm going to share with you today that either are something we do in-house. One program is a junior team tennis program that grew out of that in-house program. And another one is specifically a high school coach that started a program that engaged his community and actually grew his tennis team. So the first program here is a high school tennis fall showcase. And just kind of where this program came from, I was on a couple calls. Bill Montford had me do some calls. Craig, I think you run those too with the Innovators and Providers Group. And there was always this talk about how can we get kids to play more. Well, I opened my mouth. I said, well, we're talking about all these young kids. And what about the kids that are already playing? We should get them more engaged. Well, a couple days later, I got a phone call and said, hey, we want you to try to run a program. So word of advice out there, if anybody ever asks you to be on a call, and don't open your mouth unless you're ready to do something. But that's important. I mean, we're all here to learn how to do something new and to get kids playing more. And that is exactly what this program did. This program's focus was simple. We went after JV, non-tournament kids that were not playing after their high school season. And for us, I'm going to talk about our targets here in a minute, but we chose the fall to run this. Now, the specific targets for this program: girls only. Now, as mentioned, we picked the fall program, or the fall high school season in Ohio is the girls program, so we wanted to start it. My staff is very well connected. Several of us coached in the girls season. We also work with some very good people and good contacts that want their kids playing more. So we went after the girls. Like I mentioned before, the other target was we did not want the girls who played 1 and 2 are playing 9, 10 local tournaments, maybe playing some section level events or nationals. We didn't want that. That's not who we wanted, because those are the kids that intimidate the other kids from playing. It's not fun for those kids. So we wanted the non-tournament level player. And the other thing we looked at, and the title is How You Can Grow Your Business, is we looked for dead court time. And so we had several blocks of court time that we knew were open, and one of them was, say, Saturday night from 6 to 8. High school kids, Saturday night, 6 to 8. Anybody, fall basketball, right? And we had Friday, I think, from 5:30 to 7:30. Same thing. And then we had Sunday nights from 7 to 9 open. And as we went around with my staff, they were talking about these things. But Sunday night, we had open court time. We knew not a lot went on. We knew some church groups had stuff. So we knew kids did do things on Sunday evenings. So our goals were, we wanted to fill open court time. We wanted to provide something for the non-tournament player. And our specific focus, it was gender specific in this case, were the high school girls. Now, with this group, we had 3 components that we wanted to make sure were included because we thought they were the reason kids A, would stay in it and do it again, and also the component of competition was the ultimate thing. We wanted these kids to compete more. I was asked several times, well, why those three? Well, first of all, we needed it to be fun. Why fun? Has anybody in this room, I mean, Dave, have you ever had a kid in your program go to their mom and dad and say, Mom, I hated this thing. I don't want this passport, but I want to come back. But if the kid, like he said, runs up and the parent goes, hey, I got the November tournament's coming up. This is a lot of fun. I want to do it again. What have you just done? You retained that player. So we knew if we could create a fun environment, then we would get them to come back. Right? How did we tell if it was fun? Look at the smiles, laughing, and that says it all. Social, the other component. Why social? Well, I believe girls are very social. And so what we did is we didn't make it just about tennis. When I talked to them about the format that we did, we rotated kids out. We wanted like 20, 25 minutes, and because we had so many kids that signed up, so they would play cards. We have a couple racquetball courts where they go play volleyball. Let them sit around and talk. But anything that could keep it still kind of a team component, social. What does that mean? If they're social, they're hanging out with each other, they're talking, what are they having? Fun. So I kind of built on that. The last component, the competitive component. Why is that? Because we want these kids to get used to competing. Very important that they get used to competing. We wanted them to be on teams. We felt it was not as intimidating if they could be with a group of their peers. We wanted them to learn that it was okay if they won or lost. Because we kept telling a lot of these kids, we tell the kids in our program, you're not always going to make the big sale if you're in sales once you graduate from college. You've got to learn. And the last thing is we wanted to make sure that, I mentioned this, they were with their peers. So those were kind of the ideas. Now here's what happened out of that specific target market using those three components. We went from 0 kids to 66 paid kids in this program. Each of them paid $30 to do the program. It was low cost. Remember, that was one of the things we thought. So we kept it low cost. We could probably charge a little more. But you can do the math. So 66 kids at $30, open court time. So our bosses were happy, which makes it easier for us to go back and do more programs like this. Because of the numbers, we had to form 2 groups. We were going to run this for 6 weeks for an hour and a half only, which comes out to 9 hours of tennis. An unintended consequence, which I wouldn't call a consequence, is we had to split the group up now. We ran it for 10 weeks, and they came every other week, but they came for 2 hours. So all of a sudden, we increased the amount that they were playing and being together by an hour just because the group was so big. So that was a pretty good deal. The last thing is, the kids had a great time. If it wasn't for the awesome winter we had last year in Ohio, in Toledo, I think we had 85 inches of snow, the most that we've had, so we picked a great winter to try this. We originally, after the first go-around, we had 66 kids. I believe we had 40 to 50 that were going to re-sign up and do again. But we never got through that because of all the bad, literally it was just bad luck with the weather. Out of that program, I talked with our TSR, his name's Jim Amick, and he's fantastic. And he talked to some coaches throughout the state. And we came up with a high school co-ed challenge. So you can kind of see where it changed now. So the showcase was gender specific. Okay? Now this was open to co-ed. We wanted boys and girls. Now, the thing that was good about it is it didn't matter if a boy played a girl or a boy played boy. We just needed co-ed teams, and then whoever was there played. Same goal of players. We did not want the player that played a lot of tournaments. We didn't want the player necessarily that had done team tennis. And it was fun. Once again, what's the common theme? Team. It's a team thing. Not your regular player, team. Our goal was to have 4 to 6 kids on a team. So it was not that difficult to put them together. And once again, the cost was low. I don't know if you can see what the cost up there was, if it's on there, but it was $20. And actually, I take that back, it was $35 because we did have them register as a team, junior team tennis. But, you know, other than that, it was pretty much what a facility wanted to charge. So if you don't want to charge anything more than that, that's all you did. It was just $15. The idea was to start very local. Craig mentioned about junior team tennis, the two different paths. One was advancing, one's not. We kind of did an in-between. The idea was not to have them advance at first, but it was such a popular thing throughout 3 or 4 areas of the state of Ohio that they decided to bring these kids into Columbus, Ohio for a one-day, 4 or 5 hour competition against other kids of their level. And it was pretty cool. Those are the pictures you see. Now, here are some numbers for you. Just for 2 districts in Ohio, Northeast Ohio, Northwest Ohio, combined for the first year program, they had 62 players just for this. Now, that's pretty good, but to me, the more impressive number was 48 brand new players competed. The other players who went there had played team tennis. I think they did a little study on it one time or something, but 48 brand new players out of this. So we had 66 in our local one, and now in 2 districts, we had 48 new players playing. So we're starting with these types of programs to get kids competing and having fun. Now this program here, to me, is one of the neatest things I believe that I've seen. BATO stands for Building a Tradition of Excellence. Now, where did that come from? A local high school coach. And what this program is, it's a simple concept that this gentleman took and united a community and built his high school team. Now, the simple concept was just a challenge ladder. And I talked to him last week, actually, and I said, well, how do you promote it? How do you promote it? He goes, word of mouth. And I started with my boys team only, which only had 7 players at the time he started. So 7 players, boys only. And he averages now, every summer, 40 players in his singles ladder. And what's neat about it is, it's adults and juniors together. And it's now co-ed. And last year, because it was so successful with the singles, he started a doubles program, the same thing. And he has an average, the past 2 years, he said he's averaged about 20 to 25 players that play doubles. What's unique about it is he charges everybody $30. Right? So imagine all you guys giving me $30. Well, imagine this. You play all of your matches, I give you $20 back. So he gives an incentive that say, you know, it's $30 if you play all your matches. Obviously, there's some excuse reasons you might not be able to play, but you get $20 back. Well, my first question to him was, well, where does the other 10 go? Do you keep that for running it? He said, no. He goes to the local tennis pro shops, tennis clubs, sporting goods stores. He'll buy gift cards at the sporting goods stores. He'll purchase private lessons or group lessons, and he'll give it all away to, say, the top finishers. And he also then does a drawing. So to me, that's a pretty neat thing. So he's bringing this community around, and not only is he bringing the community in together, but when he comes to the local pro shops and the clubs, what's he doing? He's helping the local businesses, and he's trying to get his kids playing more and getting them used and comfortable to coming to a club. And maybe, you know, not maybe, but they don't have to pay for their first experience. So that's a pretty cool thing. Now, what has happened off of this is this program was pretty much, it sounds bad, but everybody would kind of laugh, oh, you're getting ready to play high school. We're like, okay, whatever. Well, they're in one of the toughest tennis conferences in the state of Ohio. We usually have teams come out of it. It's, you know, individuals usually finish top 4 in the state. Teams usually finish, top 4 in the state. And his team now, simply out of this program, getting them to compete more, have been finishing in the top 3 of the conference, boys and girls. So once again, a simple concept of bringing people together, competing, and I can promise you, we never see these kids in a USTA tournament. Never. So here's a way you can take a program and build it, and it helps build something else, build something greater than maybe what you're planning on doing. Now, it was said earlier that there's no one way to do things. Dave mentioned that would this work, would his program work in my club? No. Would my programs work in his club? Probably not. I'm Italian. I know the last name Faber doesn't sound Italian, but when I go to Pittsburgh and visit my dad's family, one thing my grandmother was always making was spaghetti sauce, right? And spaghetti sauce has one common component: tomatoes. All right? What's our common ingredient? Tennis. But then I remember, little lady throwing stuff in, all these little seasonings. Well, in this case, the variables, or that variable seasoning, is your high school athletic association in every state. When I did a portion of this presentation in Denver, I had several people come up to me and say, "That's a great idea, but our state associations and this and that." Well, I did some looking into some things, and in every state you can work things to where it can. One state said, well, you can only have 3 kids from the same team on a program outside of high school season. Okay, big freaking deal, right? Get your team, and your team, and your team. Let's get 2 kids from each of those teams. We just got 6, and let's take 2 more of those teams. So don't let the rules be an excuse or a roadblock. When we're talking about the high school, there is no simple recipe. But the variable is your high school athletic association. You've got to look and see what they allow and what they don't allow. To make this stuff happen, you need to be a leader. In my mind, everybody here at this conference, the 900 people at this conference, are leaders. That's why you're here. You're learning. And a simple definition I learned in high school of what a leader was the ability to influence people to accomplish a task at hand. Remember, that means you don't do this by yourself. You cannot do this by yourself. Other item. Growth takes time. Nothing, it's worth it, happens overnight. Me going from, I used to be called the comp guy. I tell you, it's taken a lot of years for me to learn and to grow to understand how to get more kids playing. It takes time. Keep calm and include everyone. I think the big thing a lot of times is people get worried. Don't worry about anything. This level of player, bring them all in. Bring them all. Make them feel good. Include everyone. Like I said before, you cannot do this by yourself. You've got to be the leader to get this done. How do you get this done? You find people with tennis DNA. What's that mean? It means they have a passion for the game. Maybe they're an adult league player. Maybe their kid has played tennis. I think that's an important thing. Just 4 programs. The Bateau program was started by a high school administrator and a coach. The high school challenge at our club, the Showcase, was started with coaches. It was our idea, but we got coaches who are teachers involved. And we actually run a young program. It's called the Morning Tennis Club. And we offer tennis to probably about 400 kids in the morning in their elementary schools. And that idea was come up with a tennis administrator, and she did all this work. Now, I'm involved in it. I helped organize it. But these people with the tennis DNA are the ones that accomplish it. They're the ones that get the job done. The last thing I just kind of want to touch on, and this is from personal experience, I think that the tennis world is divided into 2 groups. You're either known as a high-performance coach or a rec/developmental coach. And I see that bridge, getting closer. That gap's not as big. But if we want to make all these programs work, you know, if I want to learn what Dave, and I can tell you dead honest, about 6 years ago, I'm like, I don't know, program Dave's doing, you know, what's that? It's these young kids. Well, he's a developmental coach, and I might have been on the high performance end. But I have to understand what makes his kids tick, as well as if he's looking at me saying, well, you're a high performance coach, you have to know what makes my kids tick, because together, we all have to help develop these kids and get them competing more. So, you know, with the idea that Dave presented to you guys, that might have been viewed many years ago on the rec end. Well, that's not. This is the tennis end. It doesn't matter if you're a developmental coach or high performance coach. We're in this together, and we're trying to get these kids to compete. So, I mean, Craig, if you want to take over from here.
All right, questions from the crowd.